Is that how we're starting off with random ass noises that I didn't know was coming? It's Sunday Night Roundtable. Welcome in. We're continuing to do this because apparently we are the John Boy and Billy show now.
It's Halo Week, Lebowski.
It's Halo Week. It's been like, I feel like it's been Halo month. I feel like I've been playing it entirely too much.
Yep.
Titans get the win. They are now 9-4 after shutting out Jacksonville. And this is apparently the first Titans shutout at home in like 20-something years, which I find hard to believe, but I guess that's how it is. All right, let's just lay it out there. Titans get the win. A lot of people on Twitter are pissed that the offense was not more exciting. I'll just start there. Fair or foul?
Well, it's Titans Twitter. I mean, there's going to be something that people are pissed about. You can't make every segment of this fan base happy on a game-to-game basis. They're mad probably because Tannehill didn't throw a touchdown pass. They're mad because he didn't throw it aggressively down the field. But then if he did, and he would have thrown 4 interceptions like a rookie quarterback did across the ball, then they'd be pissed and asking for him to be benched for Logan Woodside. I mean, the Titans clearly came in here with a simplistic, boring-ass game plan, and it worked. There's no reason to do much else against the Jaguars, so why risk it? You're getting guys back for the first time in weeks, get them into the groove for things, and just go. The defense played lights out, caused a lot of turnover, especially in the second half. No real reason to press things.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny to me. If there's one thing that Mike Vrabel has shown is that depending on how the game is going, he's here to get a victory, and regardless of stats, regardless of how it looks. And it was pretty clear early on that the Jaguars were not going to pose much of a threat on offense. We talked about on the halftime show when they looked lackluster out there. So it was very much a game plan, and the way they even called the game, they weren't going to take a lot of chances.
Right.
You coming off of 2 back-to-back games where you turned the ball over 9 times combined. They came into this and said, defense is playing well, especially against a team that has no weapons on offense, and said, we're not going to give them gifts. Take the sacks, take the 1-yard runs, punt the ball, and make them beat you because we don't think they're capable of doing it. I mean, you go back to the Titans-Patriots playoff game a few years ago. They had 270 yards of offense. Titans today, 260 yards of offense. They don't care about the stats. It's about getting the victory. And it was well in hand from the get-go.
And that's, that's the point I want to make, because yeah, it's frustrating to see an offense that on paper should be lighting it up as you look at Jacksonville, which in the last 4 weeks are just 0-4. Lawrence is struggling. The Jags defense did not look nearly as good today as they did against the Titans several weeks ago. Your first inclination is to think, well, this Titans defense, the offense should be lighting them up. But you're exactly right. You just got Julio back. Let's not risk and aggravate an injury. If you can win by just pounding the rock with the running backs that the Titans are lining up with, go out there and get that win. The Titans are in a mode, and I said this on Football and Other F Words, a shameless podcast plug. That
plug away.
The Titans can really only afford to drop one game in this stretch of 5 to finish out if they have any shot at securing the 1 seed. So yes, they need a little bit of luck now with the Patriots, but honestly, this is the way you just get business done. If the Titans make a long run into the playoffs, start to approach the Super Bowl, you're going to go back and talk about that 20-0 win over the Jags, and boy, you wish the offense had lit it up more.
No, probably not.
Right. So let's take a look at the things that did frustrate me today with the Titans. Pass protection. Yeah. It continues to drive me nuts because the Titans will do well running the ball. O-line feels like that they're in a groove. They're doing, and then all of a sudden Tannehill just gets mowed down. And I've said this repeatedly. That's a guy you can't afford to have injured. So that's why it bugs me with the pass protection and the one negative that I do want to focus on today.
Yeah, even on like the non-sack ones, he took some hits while he was delivering the ball. I thought the swing that was a little high for the touchdown was a little high because he was basically getting hit in his chest almost as he was releasing the ball. So he had to shorten up his throwing motion. But the one drive in particular that bugged me was you had the Quessenberry allowed the sack, and then almost, I think it was a play or two later, I may be foggy, but it was the same drive where Brewer let the player go right around him on the outside, and on both plays. So what happened was Quessenberry shot out and didn't get depth on his kick slide. He almost went on an outside zone type path to try to cut off the outside rush of the wide defensive end. Well, here comes the wide defensive end on an inside rush, and Quessenberry's too slow to react and has nothing to counteract him and can't get his feet back under him to drive him back through and into the line, because you're going to mess up sometimes like that. What you try to do as a tackle is then get on that man's outside shoulder and shove him into the garbage, right, into the guards and the centers and what all they're doing, and hopefully you can buy some time. And that was a play that Jonathan pointed out in the group chat, that they had something cooking to Jones down the field if Quessenberry can just hold up for an extra second. And then on Brewer, he just basically same thing. He goes out, doesn't bring his feet with him, starts leaning into his contact and just goes around. So those are the simple things. Those are fixable things, but they're technique things that make a big difference, because even on the Brewer play, they had someone open down the field as well for the first down. So those are two plays you can't afford to continue to have as you go down the stretch run against the Steelers and other defenses.
So I have to disclose as I'm producing this and typing in topics here. I was going for offensive line concerns. The good news is I got to OFF, and then Google had you've previously typed this in before, of offensive line concerns. So I think that has to be the biggest issue moving forward for this team, just because they're going to get healthier, right? You see that coming back. And the one thing I do want to say as a positive is Julio Jones. I will say definitely some battered fan syndrome out there. Every time Julio would run a route, and if he walked to the sideline, all of Titans Twitter just loses their mind. Like, oh my God, he's injured again. I think that there was a little bit of a skip, or he's walking a little slowly. I've seen this movie before. And that was like from the get-go on that. So you got him worked in. If you listen to the podcast, here's my shameless plug of the Coach's Corner podcast. We talked about, it doesn't have to be a big game from him. Just get him some touches, get him worked back in there. Again, this is a game that you don't need to go out and light the world on fire. Just start getting ramped up for the playoffs. That's what the mode you're in right now. Start getting ready to move forward with the playoffs.
As a reminder, if you have comments for any of the three of us, please head on over to YouTube or Facebook and watch this. Do not comment them on Twitter. We will not see them. So we're not ignoring you, but if you've typed them on Twitter, we don't see them. Thanks, Twitter.
Titans stand at, and again, this has been like my Bible running forward, the New York Times playoff simulator. Of course, the deeper, the closer you get to the playoffs, the more accurate the simulations become. With the win today and the way that the scoreboard currently stands, along with the early game wins, the Titans have a 26% chance of hosting or having the 1 seed and hosting, 71% chance of hosting a wild card. They are almost mathematically impossible to miss the playoffs at this point. Some really terrible shit would have to happen. But again, and that's why I have to drive forward that as people drop comments in the chat that just says comment. Thank you for that. I'm so glad to see people are in here. But again, this is why I can't stress enough. Do not freak out about an offense that only put up 20 points against the abysmal Jags. You just got to get it done. Now, I do want to switch over to the defensive side of the ball. 4 turnovers from Trevor Lawrence, and I'll start there. How many of those turnovers were on Lawrence? How many of those turnovers do you feel that the Titans pressured him into giving those up?
Yeah, I think Lawrence, we talked about in the halftime show where I thought he was actually playing fairly well in the first half. He had decent pocket movement. I think this is where you see a young quarterback really start to press when he's not getting a ton of help. And then in the second half, he just kind of started to fall apart. And it's quicksand. He's trying to do too much, trying to make plays out there. And I'm not trying to be an apologist for Trevor Lawrence, but good Lord, that Jags team right now with everything that's going on the sideline with their head coach and coaching staff, it's a dumpster fire. Yeah. And I mean, it is literally, if you look it up, that is what you see. And Urban Meyer, I'm an Ohio State fan and I'm ashamed, right? Like it's very much one of those situations when you talk about Urban Meyer, when he's on your team, he's our asshole kind of thing. But now it's he's an asshole. Absolute yikes. Epitome of a guy who is a college coach that it does not translate to the NFL. So when you look at Lawrence, I do think the Titans played well. Their front four played very well, being able to beat their guys. Jeffrey Simmons had another monster game, being able to pressure. I think we just got another holding call from Andrew Norwell. Was just bulldozing him all game long. But look, rookie quarterback, he's going to have some games like this. I actually thought they should have pulled him in the sense of protecting his confidence a bit. That game was out of hand. Let another guy come in here. But if you're Urban Meyer, you kind of feel like you're probably coaching for your job. Then again,
Right.
he may actually want out at this point.
Who knows? Yeah, I thought James Robinson at some point in time was going to throw his hands up and walk out of the stadium after like the fourth holding call that's called back anything positive he did on the day. But going back to Trevor Lawrence's 4 interceptions, we can kind of look into them. So the first one went right through a receiver's hands. It's not on Lawrence. And that first interception to Evans. Also, Evans, probably his best game as a Titan ever. Maybe he had a really good day with how active he was. That's the Rashaan Evans you like to see. The next couple interceptions, he had the late one down the field to Fulton. The Fulton really makes a good play, I think, because the receiver's coming from the other side. He wasn't behind Fulton at all, like as far as on his side going down running a seam. He comes literally all the way across the field. Lawrence tries to make a play. So Lawrence just trying to make a play there. He underthrows it just a little bit. But kudos to Fulton for folding under and folding back, and dropping into that zone to pick it off. The Jaylen Brown, kudos to the Titans. That was just a heck of a play. You see a lot of people do that to young quarterbacks to basically disguise. That play I called was not designed to get a pick. That play was designed to get Adeney free off the edge, which it did. And it caused Lawrence to try to throw it right there in that window. But it's just replacement. You blitz from an area, now you're replacing into an area underneath to undercut something, and Jaylen just drops right in the path. Lawrence doesn't see him, hits him right there. Kind of the same thing with that last one to I'll keep wanting to say Ski Ryan, but that play looks more like he runs the route than the receiver. Lawrence never sees him. So those two are a little bit on Lawrence. The other ones were kind of misfortune and good plays by the Titans.
One of my favorite stats of the day, the Titans held the Jaguars to 8 rushing yards. I mean, I would love to know the stats the last time the Titans held a team to single-digit rushing, but Robinson, 6 carries for 4 yards. Carlos Hyde, 1 carry for 2. Trevor Lawrence had a rush for 2. 8 yards is pretty remarkable, and I got to throw that up to the Titans defense on that one.
Yeah, and you talk about when you have a young quarterback, what do you hear all the time is how much a decent running game can help a young quarterback. So the Titans came in and said, we're going to take that away. And I put it out on Twitter that, frankly, I think Rashaan Evans did have probably his best game. And I don't even count the interception. The interception was he was in the right place at the right time.
Right.
He looked like the Titanic trying to turn around once he actually made the interception. He ran into that iceberg.
Tried to turn it right, and his body said, no, you got to go farther left.
That man is not meant to be there in open space. The only thing in danger there were his knees. So it's a problem for the Jaguars if you can't run at all. And they could not. I mean, Trevor Lawrence, it was a one-man show out there. Robinson, I don't think he necessarily ran poorly. It's just the Jags offensive line just got absolutely worked. And not in the sense that the same way that the Titans offensive line did, giving up sacks and things like that, but they could not run block for anything. And again, goes back to consistency from Jeffrey Simmons on every play.
Right.
Danico Autry was making plays. Harold Landry making plays. And Rashaan Evans, credit where credit's due. I'm not going to say that it's because they went out there and signed, Zach Cunningham, because there have been enough other bulletin board issues there for to wake him up. But he just had a heck of a game.
Coming back a little healthy, he had some time to rest there as well. But the front, again, he's playing, and that's what worried me though earlier in the season, though, when he still wasn't playing it quite up to what he had in the past as far as being aggressive, was that when you have this line, like last year, I get it. You pair a linebacker who's not aggressive with a D line who can't stop anything and can't keep anything off the linebackers, you're gonna have a bad day. This year, my concern was this defensive line is actually putting pressure on people and getting some lanes, and Evans still isn't doing it. And it was evident that the level between Long and Evans when Long came in there and kind of played with his hair on fire to steal from Hazlitt there. But Evans really came to play today. So you got to chip your hat to him. We've been a little negative towards him in some of our articles and some of our posts. I know Superhorn really has not liked him, but again, Superhorn had to watch that film last year for the defense of all 22. So I get it. But yeah, Evans did play well today. That defense as a whole played well. And I don't want to hear it against the Jaguars. NFL teams, Houston Texans, others can still score points at times. Titans really brought their A game to not let this team cross the goal line with their, like you said, first shutout since 2000.
And I see the comment here real quick off of YouTube here talking about the linebacker rotation moving forward. It's an interesting predicament here now that you've had a pretty good game from your inside linebackers, and you just had a big money guy get signed off the streets to come in here. I will say though, there's a lot more history than one game here. Zach Cunningham is going to be a big part of this defense moving forward. So I think, where does he fit? Who is the starter next to him? I like it. That's fine. I'm here for it. Hit a headshot. We're right on target. So yeah, I think Zach Cunningham is going to fit in there. I think you probably do want to have some ability. You have undersized linebackers in David Long, Jayon Brown. Rashaan Evans brings some size. So I think it's going to be very matchup centric depending on who they're going against, who is playing next to him. But Zach Cunningham is absolutely going to be playing a lot of football for the Titans.
Especially with how Vrabel has not hidden his feelings towards that individual either. He likes him.
I liked seeing the pressure on Lawrence on the QB. I mean, 3 sacks. It felt like more than that because the Titans front had their hands all over Lawrence all day. It really felt like a very good complete effort from this defense all the way around, capitalizing on not only the mistakes, but starting to frustrate the offense to where, again, I'm stretching here. It's a bit of a false equivalency, but the Jaguars committed a lot of penalties, getting called for a lot of holding and just silly stuff. And that I got to think that some of it comes off of frustration with the Titans defense. Just, they were all over them up front, all over them in the secondary. Lawrence is throwing picks. I mean, the Jaguars offense just disintegrated against a good defensive effort.
Generally, I like to say if you're getting you give up a lot of pressure early and you're trying you get talked to by your coaches, you're trying to give your rookie quarterback a chance. That's when you see some of those holding comes out because you're getting frustrated. You let your technique get over aggressive on the offensive line. You see it with the Titans as well when they're really having one of those bad days getting Tannehill, and all of a sudden some holding plays come in and the reason they have some good positive plays is because they finally were holding that pressure back. And that's why that pressure wasn't able to get there. So when you have a defensive line, really this defense played at all levels with Rashaan and the other linebackers playing well, with Molden, Byard, the whole secondary playing well. I mean, you had all 3 levels of the Titan defense in sync, playing well, working through their coverage, working through their pressure. It's one of those things where, again, I don't really want to hear that, oh, well, they should do that against the Jaguars. Well, you're right, they should. I have more concerns if they didn't do it. But the fact that they're able to maintain serve and allow the offense to have a very basic day speaks volumes for this team. It speaks what you should expect in the playoffs as well, or this playoff run, for this team to be able to be strong and be able to put these kind of performances together on both sides when the offense is healthier and when they can put together a more aggressive game plan.
So I lied. I have one more complaint about the Titans offense. Actually, it's not offense.
I can't
trust the team. I can't deal with our special teams anymore.
Never mind. You have my attention.
The return game is non-existent. And I'm starting to get that. Chester Rogers does not seem to drop the ball a lot, but I just feel like as soon as he catches it, I'm like, well, we're not getting shit out of this. So just fair catch everything.
Thank you. I have been preaching this from day one, that the rules that have been set up that diminish the actual ability to get true returns in the NFL at this point, there's no point in even trying for it. Fair catch everything. And frankly, if the ball can go through the end zone on a kickoff, take the damn ball at the 25-yard line and move on. I am so tired of watching this because frankly, the number of turnovers, the risks of a fumble far outweigh the chance of gaining one extra first down.
And Devin Hester, the ghost of Devin Hester, is not going to be back there returning kicks for you. There's nothing dynamic about it. And after these last couple of weeks, I'm finally falling in line with that too, and on board with Jonathan was saying. I'm not willing to risk it. It's one of those things where every time you see a punt, you have to like hold your breath, like, okay, caught it. Now go down. Because you don't want to see that late rake across his arms knocking the ball out. And now the Jaguars, because that was a big thing. You see it here in the chat as well about turnover margin really does do wonders from Kevin. That is true because the only chance a team like the Jaguars had is that they could win the turnover battle and have some short fields for their quarterback, for Lawrence to have, and then put the pressure on the Titans defense. And the ways to do that also is in special teams fumbles as well. You don't want to have that. And when you're having this kind of topsy-turvy, you don't really have that guy back there anymore. Who's had some kind of weird moments. Yeah, it's just not worth it at this point.
So we've got a comment in the chat that I saw a lot on Twitter, and I'm actually a little miffed at it. And Jacob, it's not aimed at you, but you're the one who posted it, so we're going to throw it out there. Any concerns about Brett Kern? I'm going to start with my piece. No, absolutely not. I mean, he, 2 punts inside the 20 today. Yeah, he did have one bad punt today, and I made a joke in our chat about, are the leg swingers infecting each other? Because we're going to get to Fat Randy in a minute. But I know I don't have concerns with Brett Kern. Brett Kern has a lifetime resume of proving that he is a phenomenal punter. And so his off days look like the rest of the league's trash ass punters. So no, I don't have any concerns.
Yeah, I would kind of echo that to an extent. It depends on what do you mean by worry? What do you mean by
Sure.
concern? Or am I worried that Brett Kern may be diminished from the can put something out at the 3-yard line at the drop of a dime kind of thing? Yeah, I'm concerned at that level. Am I concerned that he's still, a serviceable NFL punter? No. So I do think there is reason to be concerned that yeah, he's not going to put a 60-yard punt exactly on a dime there, but you're not cutting him. Yeah, we got some German coming through here. I can't read that, but I'm not going to say I agree because I don't know what you're trying to say there, so I'm not even going to go with it.
Yeah,
No,
well,
I'm more like the Vask Tech. Rosanna, could you elaborate? I'm curious.
somebody type that into Google and click on it. The three of us are not going to do that. And I hope you have virus protection. But
Not on my computer. Nope.
but I do want to move to Fat Randy because here's the thing. I'm not going to go into a big elaborate rant about kicking concerns because I'm just over it. But it drives me nuts that somehow in the NFL, I'm going to throw this league wide. I don't know what's happened in the last 2 years, but league wide kicking is down. How are kickers getting worse? I just don't understand this. Yeah,
It's
exactly.
weird, right? It's weird, right? Because like there was a point in time when you probably would have maybe 3 or 4 liabilities across the league, right? And you knew who they were. The teams just could not find kickers. And
Yeah.
then slowly after these last few years, it's like, whoa. So we're not getting a lot of consistency out of anybody really. And the ones that do, like Carlson, I think just got a contract, are getting rewarded because of how bad everything else is. And it's a little bit of that. And I think maybe it's also teams aren't putting a priority on it anymore due to analytics or whatever. But maybe it's also they're having added pressure. I would hate if this is it, but added pressure of having the extra points been moved back. So now they're having to kick extra field goals per game. And if that's it, what else? What are you doing at practice? You've got your own field all to yourself over on the side to do nothing but kick the ball and get better at this. You can really practice in literally any condition you want. I just, or under any circumstance you want, excuse me. I don't understand it, but you're right. It's a league wide and I can't explain it because we were just in an era where it was like there's 12 or 15 good kickers. You're like, God, we'd just be lucky if we could be one of those teams as the Titans. But no, it's league wide epidemic.
I also pity any sort of kicker that has to play in a league or any position when you're having to play with otherworldly talents at that position, right? It's strange. Like you don't want to be the quarterback that was like a top 5 while Peyton Manning was at the top of his game, right? Because everybody's like, well, he's no Peyton, and yeah, great, he's still good, right? So when you have Justin Tucker out there kicking and doing the things that he does, everything that's the bar. And fans see that, and they're going. That said, Vrabel did him no justice, in my opinion, by knowing that the guy needs to get back on track and trotting him out for a 47-yarder to get that. Especially in a time, if you're talking like 4th and 18, where it's an obvious kicking situation, that's fine. But his miss today was on a 4th and 4. It's definitely in the range where you're thinking about going for it. I would not have trotted him out there for that thing. Now, the weird aspect here, and that I do see actually getting brought up here in the chat, the Titans kind of quietly have stashed away a kicker that's just kind of hanging out there on their roster on IR, who, by the way, was good enough in the preseason to get a nickname, Nashville Hot Ficken. I just cussed in Germany. And so that's a weird dynamic. And you go back to, I think it's Seattle, where Vrabel said, you have a home here. And so he's got the loyalty, and Vrabel's a loyal guy. But at some point, you can't just ignore the fact that the team is just keeping around your competition, that they're just hanging out there. And so you got to make that decision, because what you don't want to do is go into the playoffs and not have a definitive answer at kicker. And if that is Randy, then it's Randy. But you got to be definitive on what it is.
There's going to be at least 1 or 2 more games, even before the playoff run. They're going to come down to a field goal point kick at some point, either to win the game or to set the game away from someone. And that's going to come in the playoffs as well. So I agree. You have to have that answer. And I don't really have the the sight into what they're seeing with Ficken, if he's been able to do any kind of kicks or if he's how he's progressing. But it's weird that they are hanging on to him and not just cutting him, that he's just sitting there ready to come back. And maybe it's good insurance because they know they got two guys they like. And at some point in time, the wheels are probably going to fall off of Fat Randy's snack mobile. But at the same time, maybe that's why they keep kicking him around and kicking him in. But yeah, they've got to have an answer, consistent answer before the playoffs. I would feel a lot better about it because you're at a point now where every time they trot the field goal kicker out, you have to hold your breath and go, nope, I have no idea what this is going to happen here.
As we start to kind of wrap up, I want to look ahead. Let's talk about the Steelers. Steelers played the Vikings. Thursday Night Football was a very uneventful blowout loss until somehow the Steelers got it together and started to score points. And Roethlisberger, of all people, started to put it together, kind of drive. You can debate whether or not that was the Vikings let it off the gas pedal or the Steelers got it together, but the Steelers are a marked better team than the Jags. But as I was looking at the schedule earlier in the year, I expected them to be more of a pain in the ass coming out of the bye week for the Titans, and I don't necessarily feel that way now. I'll start with Boren. Against the Steelers, what are you looking for that the Titans possibly need to do better? Do you feel like that the Steelers are a threat at this point? Where do you stand on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Steelers can be that kind of gnat team. Are they a threat to win the Super Bowl? No, I don't think so. Can they beat the Titans? I do think so. And there's a reason I put the comment up here about the O-line being the main reason that the Titans won't win at all. And that is kind of the issue for them in falling apart. And when you go up against the Steelers, when you got TJ Watt, a guy that's in the conversation for being the defensive player of the year in the NFL, that's really where it's going to happen. If you can stop that pass rush, I think the Titans ultimately pull the game out. I think they have too good of a team elsewhere. And the Steelers just don't have a ton of weapons. They're going to take away the receivers for the most part. The Steelers are going to try and run the ball with Najee Harris. So he's going to get 500 carries in that game, or 500 touches. Sorry, because they're going to throw him the ball a ton as well. They're not. Roethlisberger doesn't throw the ball downfield. You know what they're going to do. So as long as the offensive line can hold up, I don't care if you had to go with double protect with the tight ends to TJ Watt's side. I'm not letting that dude beat me. That's my one thing in the game.
It's not just TJ Watt. I mean, their defense can rush the passer, and they've got Fitzpatrick that patrols in the center field there for him. So there are some weapons on that defense. So I am concerned about the offense going up against this. So you have to have the consistency in the run game like you saw today. And I know it wasn't a standout stellar rushing day for the entire Titans, but they seem to be getting 4 yards at will when they wanted to, and that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. They also have to be able to. There was at least 3 screens in this game that would have popped for 50, 60 yards, if not touchdowns, if they just catch the daggum football. And those are the kind of plays you can't let drop versus the Steelers. And because they're competent. And it seems like Roethlisberger, when he wants to turn it on or when he has to, he can a little bit. It's not a big threat like he used to be, or it's not something that should be overly concerning, but it still is there. I mean, they still have people who can catch the ball and do things with it. And they have some not dynamic like otherworldly receivers, but they do have better receiving core than some that you're going to face. So that definitely is concerning, and they have to play better than they did today as far as on offense, as far as taking some chances, but you can't hold on to the ball. You can't do those developing long plays unless you're going to double protect the edges like they did a couple times, like kind of deploy the Alabama versus Georgia in the SC championship game, where you're really going to try to max protect, and then rely on your athletes. But I don't know if they've got the athletes to outdo it downfield. So you've got to find ways to not drop those short passes and those screens and take advantage of those versus the Steelers. But worrisome, sure, but it's a game the Titans very much should win, especially with everyone coming back and the more and more they're going to be getting back from injuries.
Yeah, and I mean, when you look at it, I'm glad you brought up the screens that didn't, go downfield today where there were missed opportunities. But the fact is that since Derrick Henry went out, the screen game for the Titans has really picked up. And when you talk about matchups in football, the fact that they have that more in their arsenal, that's a bad matchup for a Steelers defense that likes to blitz. Mm-hmm. Because frankly, you blitz against a well-timed screen.
Goodbye.
Yeah, bye. Because chances are you're playing man on the backside of that screen, so which means all your defenders got their back turned to where the ball's coming from. So that there are some matchup advantages there. I think if you go back to last year and you saw what happened in that Steelers game, I do think across the NFL, the book is a little bit out on the Steelers and what they're doing. Roethlisberger has led the league in getting the ball out. So if the Titans come out and play at the sticks, that was really where the dam broke on what the problems with the Titans scheme last year was the Steelers game. You got to get in their face. You got to be able to press. You got to put Fulton on their number one guy. You got to take that away to the outside, and you got to be able to press. Having a guy like Elijah Molden playing press in the slot and playing well gives you a lot more options on what you can do defensively against the Steelers. I don't fear the Steelers if I'm the Titans quite like I would have in previous years because of what they've been doing on defense.
Plus, this Viking games you mentioned, Lebowski. Let's not act like the Vikings aren't a hot mess right now, too, with just dropping one to Detroit and not being able to hold on to a lead. I mean, I would have said if the Steelers are able to come back, Tennessee Tickle Monsters, yeah, the Steelers.
I saw a tickle reference in the chat, so I had to bring it up.
If the Steelers are able to come back in that game, I would hold it more against the Vikings than I would say the Steelers did anything right just because of what a mess they are. But yeah, Dupree, it would be nice to have kind of a revenge game type deal for Dupree coming back and being able to help what already is a stellar rush from the Titans, and they're starting to pick things back up and let him do some tickling as well. Jacob, I see you. So yeah, I'm not as scared. I agree with Jonathan, but again, it's the NFL, and this is a better team than Jacksonville, so I don't want to count any chickens or anything.
Well, and as you're looking at it again, I keep referencing this playoff simulator, but that's kind of my Bible as we work the last 5 weeks. If you're looking for the Titans to get the number one seed in a bye, the Steelers is a must-win game. It is this is the most important game out of this stretch that the Titans absolutely have to win. So, I wanted to kind of introduce the comment that someone dropped in the chat about, does Dupree make a point for a comeback revenge game? Look, hey, I hope so. Anything that you can get to drive this win, great, because again, Titans are playing for it all. You want every advantage you can in the playoffs. So this is a must-win game, and that's how you approach it.
Yep.
And I'll say this, when you talk about over the next few weeks, when you have guys like Julio this week, Dupree next week, AJ Brown the following week, my viewpoint on the season is that they were shutting guys down to get them healthy, even though those are probably guys that could probably play through some things in a pinch. If Dupree doesn't get activated, concern level starts to rise. Same thing with AJ Brown the following week. Concern level starts to rise on that. I think they have strategically positioned themselves to get these guys back for the playoff run. So that's the biggest thing I'm taking away from it. And I will say this about the Titans. If you're in it for the number one seed, I honestly feel like you probably have to win out. And I'm not sure that they do. But I think the way the Patriots schedule has fallen, they're probably going to drop one game, and you have to finish a game better than them to get that number one seed. So depending on how that starts to play out, if you lose to the Steelers, it may change how you play the rest of the games moving forward. You may have to manufacture some rest time for some guys in one of those games because the division is all but a lock at this point.
100%. Just to drop a couple of notes around the league before we get out of here is Ravens lose Lamar Jackson. We have no idea how severe it is, but he left the game on a cart. Was bad enough for him to not even attempt to win or attempt a comeback. And they lost to the Browns today. So if Lamar was going to try to make a comeback and the injury was minor enough for him to come back, you would think he would. He did not. We don't know how long he's out, but if he's out for even a couple of games, that's curtains for the Ravens. The Bills still looking, it's early in the first. The Bills looking rough right now against
just got run over by playoff Lenny.
As I say that, Fournette just runs all over him into the end zone. But Bills look rough. The Chiefs, however, as much as I dismissed them, even on last week's podcast and leading into this, as much as I dismissed the Chiefs I'm not ready to say they're back yet. I think today, after dismantling the Raiders, like 49-9, or I'm getting the score wrong, but they scored in the upper 40s. Chiefs are a concern. So you're right. This is a win-out situation for the Titans. The AFC, even though it's not as dominant as it has been in the past years, the teams that are still vying for high playoff spots are still very good teams. So you need the Patriots to drop one or two, and the Titans need to win out if you're looking at a one seed.
It may be, I'll just say it straight up. It's more important that you finish with a higher seed than the Chiefs than it is that you get the number one seed over the Patriots.
100%.
I agree with that.
100%.
And it's the Chiefs. It's not so much their offense. I know they scored a lot of points, but I think there was a fumble recovery. There were some turnovers as well for a touchdown in that game. And yes, they put up some points, but that defense is what's been playing well for them. And if they got that going, and the Chiefs offense could wake up any second in the game, yeah, that's what concerns me. You don't want to have to go to Arrowhead for that. So that's a great point by Jonathan.
That's going to do it for us. Really appreciate you all tuning in. Appreciate you dealing with that game today. Because look, even though I don't have any concerns about the Titans offense, that was a boring motherfucking game, and I'm glad to have it behind us. It was so boring. It was so boring, but they won. So, all right, we're good. Sunday Night Roundtable. Thank you all for tuning in. Brought to you by Broadway Sports Media. Like, rate, review, and subscribe our damn podcast. Come check us out. Look at this man's beer. Appreciate you all jumping in chat to interact. Keep doing that. Keep doing that week over week. We really like the interaction in there. Come check us out at Broadway Sports Media. Thank you all for tuning in. Have a good week.